everyone. Welcome to my show, Career Leadership Podcast, a podcast to spotlight purpose driven Asian leaders making an impact. This is your host, Priyanka Kumla, joining you on our 113th episode of Career Leadership Podcast. We're super excited to have an amazing guest lined up for you today. But before I unveil my special guest, a big thank you to all of you for your loyal support as always, as we have aced 100 plus episodes. And you know it, right? We wouldn't have done it without your support. So do continue to subscribe to us by following me, Priyanka Komla, or a Career Leadership Podcast page on LinkedIn to receive our LinkedIn Live notifications when we go live every Sunday at 1 p.m. Eastern, 10:30 p.m. Indian Standard Time, and on YouTube, Career Leadership Podcast, as well as you can follow me on Instagram, Priyanka Komla. We do certain live shows on Instagram as well. So make sure all your bases are covered. Well, if you are a perfect podcast lover, you can find us on any podcast streaming platform, iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher, you name it, on the go. So give us a follow and a review and a rating to help us understand how this podcast is helping you become a better version of yourself. Now, without further ado, I have an interesting guest lined up for you today on our episode 113 of Career Leadership Podcast, Ash Rao, who's an established talent acquisition expert at Verizon. She's a certified career coach, a published author, and a fellow podcaster as well. So let me say hello to our beloved Ash. Hey, Ash, welcome to the show.
Hello, Priyanka. Thank you for having me here.
Amazing. And Ash, super excited to have you on this show. We're going to learn a lot more about your journey as a talent acquisition expert, tips and tricks. So folks who are looking for jobs, you want to know what's in the mind of a talent acquisition seeker. So I have them right here for you. We'll also talk about, her podcasting journey, the book that she's already co-authored, and what it means to be an Asian woman in this field of talent acquisition. So a lot of amazing stories. But a fun thing that I just learned about Ash is Ash grew up in Bangalore, in the southern part of India. She was a shy, low-key, introverted kid. But look at the amazing transformation that she's had into this talent acquisition expert, putting herself out there into this extroverted personality. So Ash, let me begin with saying thank you for being on the show. How does it feel?
Oh my gosh, I'm super excited. Thank you so much.
That's awesome. So you've moved from Bangalore to the US as part of your life transitions. So when you look back at your journey, how does it feel, having been in the US for 15 plus years and transitioning from a shy introverted kid all the way into who you are today?
Yeah, for me, it's been a very long journey, Priyanka. So growing up in Bangalore, India, right? And I was kind of shy, introverted, and not really very outgoing personality as such. So it took me quite a bit of time to progress from being a shy person to actually stepping out of the comfort zone and overcoming the fear of public speaking and voicing my opinion. It's been a journey so far, and it's been like a step by step. It didn't really happen like an overnight transformation. It was very slow, but I think it's been a great learning experience so far, and I'm not really that much of an expert also as of now, but so far whatever I have done is feel the fear and then do it anyway. So nobody's perfect, we're all work in progress. So it's been great so far.
I love the attitude, feeling the fear, feeling the anxiety, feeling the stress. That's
Yeah.
hard for a lot of us, right? Especially with the COVID pandemic, everybody's affected in one way or the other. So,
Yeah.
that brings me to the book that you've co-authored, Tough Road Creates Tough People. How have you channelized your personal experiences or professional experiences into this theme of creating more toughness in our life when life throws a
Yeah.
challenge at us?
Yeah, that's a great question. Actually, this was a project that I did back in 2019, and this was a book I wrote with a few other co-authors actually from London. I was lucky enough to be invited to participate in this book project, and it was amazing experience for me, because it was a theme that I actually closely related to, and it was about how to overcome adversities in life. So it gave me an opportunity. It was more like a creative outlet for me to kind of channelize my thoughts and put it in words, and also share some of my personal professional experiences, what I have learned, what I have gone through, and how I have found my strength, right? So it's a really, I would say, an inspirational, motivational theme that's in the book, and it has a lot of tips and insights, not just from me. I mean, there are a few other co-authors as well, so you will get a wide variety of insights from this book. So it's been a great journey.
That's good to hear from an author's perspective. Is there a specific challenge that you can share with us, with our listeners?
Specific challenge that I went through?
Yes.
Uh, so yeah, so there's been a lot of challenges. So on the professional front, just simple things like speaking up in meetings or even launching a podcast does take a lot of courage to actually go out of the comfort zone and do something on your own, right? And there are so many insecurities that we actually have. Everybody has insecurities, but then it's a matter of overcoming those insecurities. So on the professional front, I did have a lot of challenges when it comes to carving out my own personal brand, and being an Asian women in tech. I feel that we are not like naturally, we're not taught public speaking, and we're not, um, while pursuing the technology path, we're hardly given that opportunity to kind of hone up on our communication skills. So this is a major challenge that I had to actually work through, and thankfully my profession is in line with speaking with people and doing presentations and all of that. So that was very helpful. And on the personal side too, I have gone through quite a bit of ups and downs in my life. My mom was diagnosed with cancer, and she passed away a few years ago. So I had to actually, process all those feelings and kind of channelize it into doing something positive to feel better about myself. So I wouldn't go into the details of all of that, but I have definitely put down all those experiences in the book and have shared all of those challenges. So hopefully it is inspiring to those who read the book or listen to my podcast.
To all our listeners out there, everybody has a different way of processing grief and emotions, but it's nice to know that, how do our fellow peers navigate it? That gives us a lot of strength and courage to face the unknown. So thank you for co-authoring the book, Ash. It's really inspirational when people pour their hearts out and share those nuggets of wisdom.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So to our live listeners, those who are joining us live, feel free to drop in a quick hello and the country that you're tuning in from through the comments, so we get a chance to acknowledge you guys. For those who are watching this on replay, please type in replay when you watch replay, either on YouTube or on LinkedIn. So let's talk about, some of these personal, professional challenges that you faced, and you brought up a good point. You wanted to channelize all of this into something that was more impact driven, and I believe Passion to Profession podcast was something at the back of your mind. So tell us, how did it all start?
So the podcast was, I launched my podcast during the pandemic, actually, and it's not really like the perfect time to start something new, right? And but I did it anyway, because there's really no perfect time when all the stars align and when things work out, So you just have to jump in and take a chance. I really wanted to do this podcast for a while, because initially the thought process that I had was, I had so many wonderful people in my network who had incredible stories of pursuing passion and who had found this amazing professional success in their life, and I wanted to cover those journeys and tell those stories to my network as well. So that was the intention behind it. And I just started, and I did have just like probably like a handful of guests in my mind when I started the podcast. And it's also something that's completely out of my comfort zone. I did have a lot of insecurities, like what if this whole thing is a bad idea, what if people don't like my voice, and what if I make a fool of myself. So all of these fears are very natural. Everybody has them, so I went through all of that too. I did launch the podcast, but then eventually, subsequently, the more episodes that I did, the more experts who came on the show, and they actually shared their stories. It's been a fantastic experience. I have interviewed TEDx speakers, authors, NGO founders, a lot of creative entrepreneurs on the show. And right now I'm doing a series called Women of Substance, where actually I'm covering women-centric stories of breaking stereotypes, finding one's own identity, stories of resilience, courage, and all of that. So it's a fantastic series. I'm enjoying it. Yeah, so it's been a very interesting journey for me, and I plan to, I know you have already crossed 100 episodes, so I look up to you. Definitely, one day I want to be there, and I would love to have you on the show too, Priyanka, sometime.
I would love to be part of this endeavor. Thank you so much, Ash, and thank you for your kind words. We all grow, start somewhere. So happy
Yeah,
to help and support each other as part of this journey.
absolutely.
So when you look at this journey of almost a year since you started a podcast, what's one lesson that you've learned when you look back?
Um, One lesson that I have learned is from the guests that I have interviewed, right? Most of the stories of the creative entrepreneurs, one thing that they have all done is just going for it, because if we do wait for a perfect time, perfect situation where we can really channelize our passion and or the side hustle and convert it, there's really no such thing as when everything will align perfectly and then the floor is ours, right? That's not going to happen. At some point or the other, we need to make a decision. At some point or the other, we need to make the call that, hey, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do my best, and then just not worry about the results. So focus on the efforts, don't worry too much about the results. So that's something that I have learned.
That's a great nugget of wisdom to all our live listeners. Note that pearl of wisdom, because we always think, oh, let that perfect situation come through. I'm going to wait until XYZ happens
Yeah.
in order to start my progress. But, something that I've learned through my podcasting journey, meeting amazing people is, bloom right where you're planted.
Right.
Because
Right.
you look at rocks, but you'll see a small flower
Yeah.
bloom within that, right? It's finding its
Yeah.
energy and nutrients. That's the same for human life as well.
Yeah, very well said.
Thank you. That goes to my hiking adventure I did earlier today before the podcast, where I had to just cleanse my, energy and bring in some refreshments. So I think that worked.
Oh, wow, that's awesome. Kudos
Thank
to
you.
you.
Actually, it's fun for those who are living in the DC metropolitan Virginia area. There's Seneca Creek State Park, and there's a small section where there are peonies which were planted back in the 1900s. They continue to grow them, so it's just nice to admire nature. And it's a huge hiking trail out here, one of the best parks in Maryland.
Oh, that's awesome. I should visit.
I know.
I love going out for walks, fresh air, hiking. I mean, these are all my things too. So I'd love to visit sometime.
I know, and you have a friend in me to stop by.
Yeah, yes.
Awesome. So let's talk about your talent acquisition career at Verizon. Um, when you are in the seat of trying to find the right candidate for jobs, with COVID-19, there's been a lot of job losses, new candidates are
Yeah.
looking for entry jobs, trying to get through the career. So what are three skills or qualities you look for when you're looking at a hiring candidate?
Three things that I look for when hiring a candidate is, the number one thing is, of course, we are definitely going to check for the core skills. for the job. And I am actually in tech recruitment in the product side of full life cycle recruiting at Verizon. So for me, it's all going to be all technology related positions that I handle, and having that core skills or required skills is extremely important. But having said that, I don't really, look for like 100% match, right? If they do have the aptitude and attitude to learn, and if they do have the right personality, that's the number two thing that's extremely important to me. Having that passion to work for the product, for that company, and having that great aptitude to learn more. So even if they are 80% fit, and if they have the right personality, then I would be definitely interested in taking them forward in the process. So having said, those two are definitely important: core skills, personality. And then I look for what is the main reason that they're looking for the job, right? And most of the times it's not just money. So money is definitely important, I get that, but having said that, it's the opportunity should excite them more than the compensation aspect of it. So they should be more passionate about the opportunity itself, and I want to see that in the candidate before I make the decision to interview them. So these are the three things that I generally look for when I'm trying to hire.
And for our listeners, I hope these you know tips would be very helpful as you're looking for career transitions as well. Now, you brought up an interesting point, 80% fit. As
Yeah.
there's a lot of research around how women especially look at how they fit into the job descriptions, right? The psychology of men versus women, where we look at filling up all the check boxes, even to apply to our jobs. So what advice would you have, especially for women, to rewire their psychology, saying that you deserve to
Yeah.
apply versus like waiting for that complete perfect fit?
Yeah, and I think that's the major difference in the mindset of women versus men. And what I notice, day in and day out, are men are definitely more open to exploring positions, even if they are not 100% fit. Whereas us, we try to look for everything. Like we try to check mark, as you said, basically check mark each and every requirement before we even apply, and we hesitate to apply. So my advice would be, we need to stop overthinking. I think we kind of tend to overthink and overanalyze a lot. So if an opportunity looks good, say yes and go for it and take some risks and try it out. If it doesn't work, it's okay. We can always try another. It's not like the end of the world. So my advice to women would be, to be a little more open to exploring opportunities that excite them, and go for it, because there's always potential to learn on the job as well. And now there is so much of importance given to women in tech and diversity, person of color. We need to definitely leverage that and make sure that we step in and we make our presence felt. Now is the time.
Thank you for that amazing reminder. You mentioned about taking risks, but one of the pitfalls of taking risks, especially, irrespective of the gender, is handling setbacks. So what advice would you have in terms of handling low moments based on your own professional and personal experiences?
Yeah, Priyanka, that's a great question. Actually, I do have um, plenty of low moments, so a lot of experiences. So I've made a lot of mistakes in my career as well. But the way to handle low moments is just try not to overthink too much, because it's not something that we are doing a mistake that's not already been done by somebody else. If you mess up on stage, it's fine, because others have done that too. So we need to be a little more, I would say, accommodative. We need to be a little more tolerant of ourselves, and it's okay to make mistakes. And that's the way to go about it. And just to feel, try to do smaller things that will make you feel better about the situation. For me, I try to not to overthink. And second, I try to distract myself, just doing some simple stuff that makes me happy, even taking a walk outside, getting some fresh air, talking to family, friends, getting dressed and going out. I think, even if you don't feel it, do it anyway, because it will eventually make you feel better. So, and this too will pass. Low moments are not, it's very temporary. The good moments are going to come after this. So, that's how I handle the low moments.
That goes back to the theme of this podcast. So tough people last, tough times don't last forever.
That is so true.
Right. So when you look back at your own personal experience, Ash, you mentioned about, how we can handle low moments. But what do you
Yeah.
tell yourself as a woman in tech, as you're rising through the career ladder in your profession? What are some challenges you faced personally, especially as an Asian, as somebody who moved from Bangalore to US to pursue her career as well and her personal
Yeah.
life?
Yeah, so coming from Bangalore, India, and I'm very proud of my Asian roots, first of all.
I love that, embracing our
Yeah,
embracing our heritage and the unique traits we bring as Asians.
yes, so I'm really very proud to be Asian. I always carry a piece of India in my heart. And my Indian upbringing definitely does give me a very strong foundation to stand on, and it does influence on how I do things, either at work or at personal life, in terms of what values that I carry. Definitely, that's a very big part of me. But having said that, coming all the way from India and to US and just starting everything from the scratch, there were a lot of challenges that I did have to face through as well. Because as I mentioned before, I'm not really an expert when it comes to public speaking, for example. Like I did have to actually put a lot of time and effort and overcome these challenges. And it was for me definitely stepping out of the comfort zone, whether it was publishing a book and launching my own podcast, or just making a strong personal brand for myself. Everything has been a very gradual process for me, and it did take time. And I, like, for example, I remember my very first podcast episode, I was very nervous, talking to my first guest. But the only way to go about it is actually just push through that fear and then do it anyway. So for me, that's what I told myself, that it is important for me. And the purpose of why I'm doing this is bigger than all the other stuff, the fear, the insecurities, and not feeling extremely confident. All of that is smaller compared to the big picture or the purpose of the whole podcast. So that has been the process for me. So every mistake I've made, I actually think of that as a building block to step on and then get better at doing my job. So I hope that answers your question.
I know, and I love that attitude. I'm quite sure our listeners will be inspired to hear that. As humans, we got to take risks, and with risks
Yeah.
come, the probability of failing at some things, but you at least know, you pick up a lesson rather than over ruminating, as you rightly pointed out earlier during the session as well. All right, so we have a
Yeah.
fun rapid fire round for you. Are you ready for it?
Yes, let's do that.
All right. So it's always fun for me to put, my guests, especially if it's a fellow podcaster, on hot seat. So let's see what Ash has in store for us. All right. So you tell me the first thing that comes to your mind when I say the following, and in one word, wherever possible. Who's
Okay.
your role model?
My mom.
What does happiness mean to you?
Happiness is living a purposeful life and enjoying life to the fullest extent.
How do you define success?
Success is a very relative term for me, and personally, I feel success is being in a position to make an impact or make a difference, help others in some way.
What is one fun thing about Ash that's exclusive to our Career Leadership podcast listeners?
Oh, exclusive. I do share everything on the social media, so that's a fun, tricky question, Priyanka. Um,
I'm quite
fun
sure you can do
thing.
this.
Mm. So fun thing about me is, something that I've not really disclosed to anybody is I do plan to write another book, and this book would be based on the lessons that I have learned from my podcast and from the guest advice. So I do plan to write that, and hopefully, sometime in the future, I want to see myself completing that project.
Hey, we are here to support you whenever that happens. It could be the golden book for all podcasters out there.
Yeah, keeping fingers crossed.
I know. So the final question, what is your native language and one word to describe yourself in it?
Native language is Kannada. I am from Bangalore, India. So mother tongue is Kannada. And then one word to describe in Kannada or any other
In
word or
Kannada? We're going to learn some
okay.
Kannada on the show.
Okay. In Kannada, then I would say one word that describes me is Dwani. Dwani means voice. So I intend to use my voice to make an impact. And I think that word probably is, it just comes to my mind as of now. So that's the whole reason behind launching my podcast as well, to use my voice to make an impact. So Dwani it is.
I love that. Being a storyteller is something that we all find find it to be part of our passion, as part of our identity. So I'm so glad you've branded it that
Yeah.
way. So we've reached the end of the episode. What's one parting thought that you would like to share with our listeners, Ash?
Parting thoughts, Priyanka. Definitely, I feel very thankful for all the support that I have received so far. From friends, family, online network. I've been really fortunate to be surrounded by a very supportive community. So I would say anybody out there, always be willing to try new things. Stay open to new possibilities, and don't restrict yourself. You may have a corporate job and you may enjoy it, and still don't put yourself in the box. Try out new things and pursue your passion, and have a side hustle. I know this is not a very common advice, but I highly recommend that everyone should have a side hustle like you and I have, right? And personally, it's just going to enrich your life in unexpected ways. So have a side hustle. And of course, about career podcast, I want to kind of share a couple of things I did listen to a lot of episodes. Priyanka, you are a great host. I
Thank
did
you.
have an opportunity to kind of do my research. I listened to a few episodes. We have very similar podcast theme, but I really like the fact that you are focusing on Asian leaders and you're actually covering their stories. So I love the format of the show. I highly encourage anybody who is listening to subscribe for the show. You will gain a lot of insights, not just from Priyanka, but also from the guests. So it's been a very inspirational podcast. You're doing a great job, Priyanka. So keep that going.
Thank you so much, Ash, for your kind words. And, I feel very honored and grateful when I have people talking about how deeply impactful the show has been. And as you know, as a podcaster, life gets tough with a side hustle, right? So I'm so glad to hear these kind words of appreciation. Thank you so much, Ash. And back at you. Passion to Profession podcast is an amazing show where you can learn about how do you convert your passion into professional success. So go check out passiontoprofessionpodcast.com. There's a website. You can also find it on all podcast streaming platforms. And I would highly encourage you to support each other, both Career Leadership as well as my amazing podcaster friend here, Ash, with her Passion to Profession podcast as well. This was such a super cool episode, Ash, and I've learned amazing things. So, as a recap, three key takeaways on episode 113 of Career Leadership Podcast to spotlight purpose driven Asian leaders making an impact this week with Ash Rao, talent acquisition expert at Verizon, podcaster, author, you name it. She's done a lot of things in life. One, don't put yourself in a box, go after your passions. Two, stop feeling the fear too much. Just go out there and do it. And three, When there's a tough road ahead, you're going to make some tough choices, but you learn from it. You don't over ruminate or stress yourself out of it. So those are three nuggets of wisdom. Hope you enjoyed this episode of Career Leadership Podcast. And for those of us who are watching it live or on replay, give us a like and subscribe to us on YouTube. If you're watching this on YouTube, if you're watching this on LinkedIn, give us a like. Follow me, Priyanka Komla, and a Career Leadership Podcast page. And for all those amazing podcast lovers hearing this on a podcast streaming platform, give us a follow or review and rating to help us understand how this podcast is helping you become a better version of yourself. Until another episode that's going to happen next Sunday, same time, 1 p.m. Eastern, 10:30 p.m. Indian Standard Time. This is your host, Priyanka Komla, signing off from Career Leadership Podcast, a podcast to spotlight purpose-driven Asian leaders making an impact. Thank you so much, Ash, for joining us as well.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.